Okay, before we welcome on our first guest of the night, it's a special one. It's a former Marlin. It's AJ Ramos. Wanted to remind everybody, and boy, we've been talking about this, Stephen, for a couple of months, but Monster Jam, it's the big weekend, brother. The big
Yep,
weekend.
finally.
It's finally, we've been talking about it since like Thanksgiving time. We've been promoting Monster Jam. It's at Lone Depot Park this Saturday and Sunday. If you're watching, if you're on your phone, you see the QR code, make sure you scan. But I know they're expecting a couple of really nice crowds this weekend. So remember, Monster Jam is back in Lone Depot Park this week.
Yep, I'll be there. I will
You will?
absolutely be there.
You
I will be
promise?
there. I promise.
All right, very good. You won't let me down. Well, let's welcome on our first guest of the show tonight. There he is. He was one of my favorite Marlins. He was an all-star in 2016, spent parts of 9 seasons in the big leagues, pitched in over 380 games, pitched to the tune of a 3.04 ERA over the course of his big league career. It is former Marlins closer, AJ Ramos. AJ, it is great to see you, man. How is life? How's post-baseball life? You look great, dude.
Thank you. Thank you. Appreciate you guys having me on. And I got a question. Is the roof going to be open or closed for that Monster Jam? You guys know about
That's
that?
a good question.
That's
I'm
a
not
really good
sure. Did you
question.
ever go?
Man, no.
wasn't.
Well, I never went to the ones in Miami, but whenever I was younger, they would come to Texas when I was living in Texas. And man, I used to love going to those Monster Jams. They're one of my favorite things to go to. Gravedigger was one of my favorites.
That'll be
I
there.
Yeah, I remember. Stone Cold Steve Austin came to Lubbock, Texas, because of the Monster Jam or whatever. So I got to meet Stone Cold there. So that was a big part of my childhood, is wanting to actually be a monster truck driver. So now that I'm retired, I mean, maybe maybe I could
Wow.
start crushing cars, man. But life has been good after, man. I have 2 beautiful daughters now. I just had so I had my second daughter December 18th. So I'm still in that newborn phase where I'm not getting very much sleep, but everything has been great so far, man. I'm enjoying it, and I'm actually glad that I had kids when I did, because I get to be a full-time dad, and spend a maximal time with my babies. So everything always seems to work out the way it's supposed to.
Well, it's great to see you, man. I was chatting with Steven a little bit, and it's funny because you mentioned the Monster Jam stuff. Do I recall? Weren't you a big wrestling guy? Do I remember
Yeah,
that? You and Tom Kohler would be talking
yeah.
wrestling. What? Yeah, okay, I
Yeah,
thought so.
man, I used to love wrestling, man. I mean, me and my brother we had a trampoline in the back, and we would do wrestling moves. Even though, I mean, kids don't do that, you can get hurt. I was a professional wrestler back then. I watched everything, so it was fun, man. I loved the storylines and stuff. I also, later on in my career, I was like, man, we should start like fake beef with other players. So like when they come to the stadium, I'm like, I got beef with you, brother. Yeah. And then the entrances would be really dope too. So like I had a crazy imagination, but yeah, I loved it all back then.
So AJ, you were an all-star, like Kyle mentioned, spent 6 seasons with the Marlins, and you've transitioned into a media career. Did you ever think you were gonna get into the podcast space and the broadcast space?
So throughout my career, I'd give interviews, and I gave a little bit more than some guys, I guess. So I always got the people would tell me like, you'd be good on, in the media space after this. You have personality. So it was kind of like implanted in my mind throughout my career. And then once I was done, after a year, at about a year out, I did like a radio hit at a career development program that the MLBPA puts on. And the guys there were like, listen, you can work right now for us. So and then they told me that like how it all works out. I mean, I get to work from home. I get to talk about baseball, and it's not, it's perfect for my life right now. Again, I want to prioritize, most of my life I spent um, prioritizing my career, to where that was the main thing of my life. And now at this half of my life, I want to start prioritizing, family more. So this type of job, as of right now, where I stand right now, allows me to continue to prioritize my family. So, but I'm open to, as I'm getting into it, I'm open to do even more. Obviously with anything that I do, I want to be one of the best at it. So the only way you can be one of the best at it is if you do it, get more reps. So I'm looking forward to seeing where this goes.
What a beautiful way to look at life, AJ. And I also pulled up some of your highlights. I'm hoping we get to talk over this, and I think we do.
Yeah.
Just when you're watching some of these, and for our StreamYard viewers, we're just playing some of AJ's saves from his All-Star year. But what's going through your mind when you're watching some of these highlights?
Man, it just feels like a different life. I mean, when you're in it, when you're playing, you're so focused on trying to be the best you can be, or I was anyway. Most guys are, that you don't really look up. It's like like I compare it to like you're swimming underwater. You just have your head down and you're going, trying to get to that finish line or trying to continue to improve. And once it's all over, you kind of look up and you're like, wow, I swam a long distance. And I was so blessed, facing Trout right there. I
I
remember
thought
throwing
Trout
that
hit
ball.
one out of here, AJ. I got
I
to be
thought
honest
so
with you.
too. Luckily those fences were back, right? And those fences were back, and you can see me laughing. I think after this one, that I was like, man, Trout almost got me. And just it just seems it was a blessing to be able to play at that level. And there's when I was playing again, I didn't think about my achievements. And when you were just Kyle, when you were just talking about the amount of innings I pitched and all these different things, I'm like, wow, I had a good run at it. So to go from with the attributes that I had, when you look at it, I even watched a video of myself playing in high school, and I'm like, that kid made it to the big leagues. Like, wow, that's pretty impressive for that kid. Because I look at high school kids now and they're throwing 96, 97, like blowing the doors off people. And I was just a little Mexican kid from Lubbock, Texas. So to be able to maximize my abilities, to be able to be an all-star and to, give it all I had for all those years was an amazing experience. And, when I look back on it, there's parts of that nostalgia. There's parts of that of me that it's like, oh man, it went by like that. But it also gave me a life that, I can do what I want now, so it's all a blessing.
Hey, I do want to ask you about your podcast, The Locker Room. I've been hearing you on Sirius XM, which is really cool, man. When Steven plays those videos, it's crazy to me, AJ, because I started in 2013. I remember you made your debut in 2012. Number one, that ballpark looks totally different. You could have told me that thing was anywhere else in the country, and I wouldn't have known. But when you reminisce on your time with the Marlins in particular, I know one of your very good friends is Giancarlo. You had some amazing years together. Some really good players went through trials and tribulations, obviously in 2016 with Jose passing. I know you just touched on it a little bit. What do you remember most about being a Miami Marlin, though, for those handful of years?
The city, man, the city and the fans. The fans, the ones that show up, and when they all show up, it's an amazing atmosphere. I think, when you look at those World Baseball Classics and how much how the vibe in that stadium is electric, and the fans that do show up, the season ticket holders, the people that go every day to every game, they're diehards, and every once in a while there's still some fans that message me from the Marlins.
Really?
Yeah, still, and like, hey, congratulations on your kid or whatever, and I message them back. But that, it was the ballpark was different. I remember my first year, the Clevelander was our bullpen was right next to the Clevelander. So being a rookie looking in the Clevelander during the game, I understand why they switched our bullpen to the other side and let the other team be distracted by the Clevelander, because that was pretty distracting. But that was a fun time. The city, man, I love the city. The mornings there, I don't know, there's just a certain feel that Miami has for me, that it's always gonna have a special place. And I miss it a lot. So I go back there every so often. Now with kids, it's kind of hard to go back, travel as much, but man, it just, the city, I loved it. It was my first big league experience.
Yeah.
It was all I knew. And it was an amazing experience, man. And I know we went through a bunch of stuff, the Jose Fernandez, that stands out, obviously. Ichiro being a teammate, Barry Bonds being a coach, as well as Donnie Baseball, like having legends, around, Tony Perez, all these guys, it's just all these people that were around. I was blessed to be a part of such history in baseball, and Miami provided me with that.
God, there's so much to play off of there.
Yeah, I know.
I don't know where we want to go. I guess you mentioned Ichiro, and I think it's good timing to bring him up. And you were teammates with him. I heard you share a story about the trash can story with Ichiro. I'd love for you to share with our audience that specific story. I think it was in Colorado.
Yeah. So it was around the time he got his 3,000th hit, and I believe it was a show and go. But before that, I had come across on Instagram some videos of Ichiro. I think everyone's seen him. He's like at various places in the ballpark. There's like 6 bats set up, and he hits them consecutively with one throw, and he throws from the outfield and goes into a bucket or some stuff like that, And I was like, to me, I mean, it's obviously like edited, but like went up to him and asked him, "Hey, Ichi, is this real?" And he goes, "Of course." And he kind of just jogs off and runs or whatever. And I'm like, he's messing with me, because Ichiro, he likes to mess with people, like, because he's so serious looking that he knows that he can play off that, and he knows way more English than people know. And he messes with media members every once in a while, with teammates. And he's a subtle, funny guy if you don't actually like know him or around him all the time. So, I was like, he's joking with me. And then it was in Colorado, me and Jose and maybe Tom Kohler, or I forgot who it was, but we were trying to hit this trash can, just trying to hit it. And we kept, I don't know, I threw like 50 balls, and Ichiro was warming up with Alan and his translator. And once he was done warming up, he just kind of walks over and he has his ball and he throws it. And so, in those trash cans, it's like the regular circle, and then there's like the little, to put it in there, the top part, that's like a little hole.
Sure.
Makes it in it. And me and Jose were like, "No." And he looks at me. I didn't think he remembered. I didn't even remember at the time either. He goes, "No, you believe me?" And then like runs off with his his shades. And like, we're just sitting there laughing. I'm like, wow, that's a GOAT. That's a legend. You know what I mean? So there was that. And there's, one of my favorite compliments was after I got traded. I got traded to the Mets, and when the Marlins came up to play us in New York, Ichiro stopped me during batting practice, or their batting practice, and he was like, "Hey, I didn't get to say bye." This is all in English too. He said, "I didn't get to say bye. I wanted to wish you luck on your career." He's like, "You were one of my favorite teammates because of the way you went about your business, the way your work ethic and your care for the game. I just want to let you know that, and I want you to, good luck on your career." And while he was telling me this, it was like there was this human side that came out of Ichiro that you didn't see very much. And, and I was like, "Whoa, this is crazy." And he gave me a hug, and then morphed back into Ichiro Suzuki, and then jogged away, And that was one of my most, like, for Ichiro to tell me that I was one of his, favorite teammates because of my work ethic meant a lot to me. And honestly, I did a lot of watching. I was a guy that I wanted to be the best. So the way you do that is watch the best, watch how the legends work, watch how they conduct their business and how they handle success, failures, and all those things. So I watched him a lot, and I kind of crafted my routine subtly off of his. And I did different things, but I found out and figured out what can work best for me and how to best prepare for my game, or my outings. So, it was an amazing experience getting to play with him and just seeing him go through his process. And I think later on when we played him, whenever we went to Miami, as I was a Met, he got a hit off me. Like, he just roped one right over shortstop, over Echeverria's head. And I was like, I gave up a hit to a great one. So
he did that to a few folks, AJ. There's nothing to be disappointed about.
Yeah.
Hey, you know what's amazing? Now tell me this, dude. I couldn't believe this last night. one person decided not to vote for him unanimously into the Hall. That makes me almost a little sick to my stomach. I just don't understand in what world somebody could decide that's not a first ballot unanimous Hall of Famer, man.
Yeah, I mean, it's one of those things where maybe Ichiro didn't give him an interview, or I mean, I don't understand. Like when you look at his career, like what doesn't scream Hall of Fame to you? You know what I mean? There has to be a personal grudge or something. Like these things sometimes are so emotional. So I feel like when you look at the numbers, you look at I mean, just his dedication to the game. I think I saw somebody had asked him, or I was listening to Sirius XM radio, the MLB Network radio, and I think they were interviewing Mike Cameron, and he was talking about how he asked Ichiro, like, "You don't have any kids?" And Ichiro was like, I'm too dedicated to my game, to this game, to have kids. It would be unfair to my kid because I would still want to have the same attention and focus towards the game. I mean, this guy dedicated his life to this game, and he still suits up. You
Yeah, he
know,
still does suit up.
he still suits up. He still does a lot of his routine. He still takes BP.
Every day.
And I think, Mike Cameron was even saying, he was like, because Mike Cameron's also with the Mariners in some sort of capacity working. And he was saying, he was like, if the guy could see, he would still be playing. I think that one of the biggest things is his eyes. Yeah, it's hard to pick up the spin and all that stuff that you need to do as a major league hitter. But, for me, just hearing that type of stuff and knowing how he was dedicated kind of lets me know, even off the field stuff, that he was 100% a baseball guy. And not only that, but his numbers and his career, like that's a 100%, voted in guy for me.
I will share this one anecdote because you were chatting about Ichiro and his routine. And Steven, I'm not even sure if you're aware of this. Full disclosure, I may have exchanged one or two pleasantries in my whole time with the Marlins because there's not too many guys I was like, they're like larger than life. It was that crazy to see him around, but it was amazing. Number one, to watch the media follow him. They were very respectful. They would keep like a certain amount of distance every day. Only one person was allowed to speak with him, and they would then share it with the reporters. But if he said that he would show up at 3:01 in 30 seconds, that guy would walk through the doors not a second after that. And somehow,
Yeah.
I don't know how he seemingly got out of there as soon as the last out was made, but I've never seen somebody shower and get out of a clubhouse quicker. It was wild.
Yeah, it was like I was watching these my Instagram feed, and they're talking about how Prince used to like show up and disappear, like Prince the singer. And that's kind of like Ichiro. Ichiro would like somehow be at his hotel before everyone was like showering. I'm like, how are you doing this, man?
I
Like he's
know.
one of those, like he's just a legend. He's just a mythical creature almost. And the thing about the media, it was cool. Like when he was chasing his 3,000th hit, there was a bunch of Japanese media, obviously, but they were never in the way. They were never in the way of anybody else. They were so respectful. And it was amazing to see. And then so Ichiro would come in his locker room, come into his locker, take off the shirt that he just pulled out of his special bags, and then open another bag, put on his other undershirt, like never been worn, and then fix his hat, turn around, and then go. And then one media member will walk up to him, like, and they would all just sitting there watching him the whole time, just watching his every move. And then once he gave him the nod, then someone would go up and talk to him. Like they were so respectful. It was amazing to see. And there was a bunch of them, obviously. I mean, it's a huge deal. So yeah, it was just the culture, the way they handled it, like the media handled that, and the way Ichiro handled that was, it was amazing. And I was just blessed to be a part of that, man.
Talk about meticulous. I mean, it leads to the discipline and the success. I wrote down a couple of numbers, some Ichiro numbers, and I just want you to answer what you feel is the most impressive. They're all impressive, but there's got to be a number one. So here are some of the things I wrote down. Ichiro set the single season record for most hits with 262 in a single season in 2004. He tallied 3,089 hits in the majors despite not making his debut until 27. We know that. He had a 9-year career in Japan. He's one of 7 players with 3,000 hits and 500 stolen bases. And this one for me personally is the most impressive. If Ichiro came out of retirement, he would have to go hitless for 444 consecutive at-bats for his batting average to drop to below 300.
I mean, it's insane. And not only with that, so even I mean, he's great and he has all these he's all this success, but he's even when he was struggling, you never seem to know whenever he was playing good or bad. He was one of those even kill guys. Like it was amazing to watch somebody just basically take things as almost information, and it's like, oh, he beat me because of this. Not there was no like I'm mad that he beat me. There was none of these different things. It was just like straight stoic and just like ready to go get him the next time. And that's something I feel like a lot of people can learn from it. I mean, it's great to show emotion, and not to keep it bottled up, but not to allow that emotion to carry over to your at bat, whether that be a positive or a negative. A lot of that stuff can influence you. So he was one of the best at not allowing the negatives or the success influence him, so that he was able to go out and be Ichiro every at bat. Give a great at bat. So yeah, I mean, it's just amazing to be around somebody like that. I learned so much just by watching him.
Steven, you brought up the word meticulous. This is the only other thing that just sparked my mind. I never know he did this until I saw it, and then I asked. And AJ, you probably saw him do this a lot. He would polish his own shoes every day, and
Yep.
then he would also pour over his jersey. And if there was a little thread sticking off his jersey, he had a little tiny pair of scissors where he would snip the thread off of his own jersey every day, because it was like, I guess to him, it was like perfection. That was a part. I don't know. I saw that. I asked about it, and I was like, dude, you're a big leaguer. Somebody else could wash those shoes for you. He did it himself. He clipped his own jersey. It was some of the most fascinating stuff I've ever seen.
Yeah, he also lint rollered the front of his locker when he
That's
would
right.
show up. Yeah, he had this little lint roller that he would do at the front of his locker, and like get on his hands and knees, and
Yeah.
like and like a servant pose, basically. You know what I mean? You're like, Ichi, what are you doing? Like I'd never expect you to see it, but that was just the level of respect that he had for his process and his game. And it's just next level. I mean, that's one of the reasons why he's one of the best to ever play. And that's because he was like played half his career in the States. I can't imagine if he played
Oh,
his full career, the amount of numbers he would have put up. So yeah, he was just one of a kind for sure.
I'm sure he'd be the all-time hit king. AJ, I know you have a flight to catch. I have one more for you. And by the way, full disclosure, folks, AJ woke up at like 6 o'clock Mountain Time to join us on the Marlins Hot Stove Show. We're forever appreciative for that, AJ.
Seriously?
Seriously, thank you so much. My last question for you, and it's probably a little bit deeper, but some guys don't do it well. You have seemingly gracefully handled your transition from baseball into the next stage of your life extremely well. And you came to grips with like something that consumed me for so long. It's no longer my identity, but you've made this amazing life for yourself with a family and the podcasting and Sirius XM. How difficult was it for you, man? It's sometimes so difficult for players to let that part of their life go.
Man, it's extremely difficult. I mean, it hits in waves. I think I did a decent job while playing to try to separate myself from success and failure and baseball. I did a decent job, but I still could have done a better one. You know, Whenever your career ends on an injury, like how mine did, it was abrupt and it was tough. But one of the things that helped me was, my wife was pregnant at the time, and then so I had something that I had to transition to that is arguably way more important than baseball, and is the life of my child that was coming. So that helped me, and just understanding and being grateful for the amount of time that I did get to play, the gratitude that I had to learn to appreciate where I was. And when the times, I mean, even still, there's still some times where you get down. I mean, it's hard to take something out of your body and your mind that you've been doing since you were 5 years old. And um, my when the hardest question was, what do you do after you outlive a dream? What do you do? Like my purpose was to get to the big leagues. That was my dream. I got to live in that moment for from 2012 to 2022. That was like my dream, and I almost forgot to dream after it. What's the next dream? So once you get over that a little bit. Once you get over the identity crisis, then you see that there's a whole nother, space sometimes. And I saw how being one thing for all of my life was very limiting. I had to think only in certain terms. So being able to expand my mind and expand in things that I like, things that I don't like, figure out just a different way of living is fun, but it also could be a daunting task because there's so much space, there's so much room to think about things, and it can be overwhelming. So I understand it's very hard for guys, and it was very hard for me. And again, still there's some waves where I think one of the biggest things I had to get over was I can't throw a baseball right now. Like if I try to throw a baseball, my arm will pop out of my socket and that's it. I had trouble popping it back in. So I didn't do rehab, I didn't do all that stuff. So like there's still some things, and I need to have surgery. But I couldn't have surgery because my wife was pregnant. I didn't want to be in a sling while we have a newborn. And so like this whole process, but yeah, man, I mean, showing gratitude, being appreciative of the life that I have, and understanding that I'm blessed, and understanding that I worked very hard, and I'm in a great position, and I'm loved. So I had a little bit smoother transition than most or some, but that didn't mean it wasn't hard. And I think, yeah, the biggest thing, like I mentioned, is gratitude with it all. So.
Well, AJ, I love the way that you look at life, and you're doing an outstanding job outside of baseball. You're obviously not just a baseball player anymore. You're doing your thing. You got a family. So me and Kyle really do appreciate you jumping on with us.
Yeah, man, I appreciate you guys having me on, talking baseball, reliving the Marlins times and all those things. I mean, it's fun. That's what I get to do now. I'm retired. It kind of it gives me my fix of baseball. So thank you guys for having me on.
AJ, real quick, plug your stuff for us. Let our fans know where they can find your stuff. I'll make sure we actually plug it and put a graphic up of all your podcast work and SiriusXM stuff as well, man.
Yeah. The YouTube page is The Locker Room with AJ. And same thing with Instagram. My Twitter is the AJ Ramos. You can also follow some stuff there. So throughout the season, I'll be interviewing guys kind of similar to what you guys are doing, and just talking about process, talking about what it's like to be a big leaguer. I'm also interviewing people who don't play in the big leagues, just people just sports people, and just learning the process of how to be great, and what it takes to be great, and how to be a human through it all as well. So
thank you, AJ.
Yeah, thank you guys.